Coming at you in the new year with new Geeks on Trial. Today, we're talking about what's entering the public domain. I hear that Mickey fella's on the table. Then we're getting into our case of the week, which has to do with a party foul involving a couple and their costumes. We're going to decide what's fair and what's unfair. Stay tuned. What you are listening to is real. The parties involved are not cool. They are actual geeks with a case pending in the court of public opinion. The party's case has been dismissed, and the dispute will be settled here on our podcast. There will be no lawyers. There will be no witness testimony. The judge's decisions are final.
Hello, I'm Judge Ivan.
I'm Judge Jonathan, and this is Geeks on Trial. Today's case, costume convictions.
Welcome to Geeks on Trial. This is the podcast where we settle petty disputes between actual geeks over movies, video games, board games, and more. If you'd like to submit your own geeky case for a future episode, you can email us at geeksontrial@gmail.com. You can also support the show over at patreon.com/geeksontrial for just $5 a month, and you'll gain early access to both our audio and video episodes before they're released to the general public. Plus, you'll gain access to Geeks on Trial Sidebar, a bi-monthly show exclusive to Patreon.
Hells yeah, you will, man.
I got through most of that, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, and you're getting this episode on a Wednesday.
Wednesday.
It's our first episode of 2024.
So exciting.
Wow, I feel so different in this new year. Would you believe that I haven't done this podcast all year yet?
Yeah.
Till now?
You know, I was waiting for some kind of this year joke. It was
I pretty much bailed on it halfway through. It was
right.
Pretty half-hearted.
Which makes sense, but that's fine. That's what we do. That's who we are.
Those jokes are funny, though. We all agree those are funny jokes.
They're great jokes.
Haven't seen you all year.
They're more so funny every time you do it. Like, I'll see you next year. Oh, I haven't had water all year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's plenty more.
Boy, I haven't jacked off to horse hentai all year.
That's a damn lie. You were doing that as the ball was dropping.
I make a point.
You were waiting. Everyone was. It was disturbing.
It's my annual tradition.
You were sitting on top of the TV, which I don't understand how you were doing that.
Not ponies. They're horses.
No, full adult.
They're of age.
So, there's a new year.
Oh, you want to change the subject?
Oh, a lot. I do.
Yeah, okay. This is strange. I don't know why.
So there's a new year coming in. It's 2024, the year of something. I don't know. I'm sure there's a year for 2024, and a lot of things are in public domain, and it's a lot of major things that are in public domain. And I hear you have a list of things that are in public domain. This year. I came to the meeting. I came to rehearsal this week.
Well, I'm on the committee of Public Works. Anyone can be because it's free to join. It's not there's no requirements. That's the whole point. And yes, on January 1st, it's sort of become, I guess this has been going on for a while, but it feels like in the last 5 to 10 years, it's been more publicized, primarily because for a long time, Disney kept fighting the court to change the laws to keep pushing the dates so that their beloved Mickey Mouse would stay out of the public domain, which, if anyone doesn't know, means that you're free to use it. For instance, like Sherlock Holmes is public domain, so anybody can make a Sherlock Holmes movie and you don't have to pay for it.
Right. Now, explain to me, who is Mickey?
Do you know Mortimer Mouse?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Oswald the Lucky Rabbit?
Yes.
It's a bit like those two mixed together. So here's the things that as of 2024, I mean, the big one that we were alluding to that people probably have heard about is Steamboat Willie. And now, to be clear, this is not Mickey Mouse in general is still a trademark property of the Disney company.
Right. But the character,
specifically Steamboat Willie, the cartoon from 1923, I guess, right? 100 years, isn't that what it is?
Something like that.
I thought it was 28 for some reason. I don't know what it is. That cartoon, and you could publish it on YouTube for free. You could make a game or a movie or a book based on it or whatever you want, but there's still, I don't really know all the hoops you have to jump through, but there are still some hoops of you better not like, don't put any red on Steamboat Willie's pants because he didn't wear red yet. And he can't talk because he didn't talk in that
It needs to be an exact replica of Steamboat Willie because it's technically, I guess it is, was it Mickey Mouse in Steamboat Willie or is this the character just Steamboat Willie?
I think, I can't recall if they actually say his name or not in the cartoon.
Because you know, like,
it's
how
a silent cartoon.
Right. And like some Warner Brothers thing, it's like Bugs Bunny is whatever,
right.
or, you know, Mickey Mouse is whomever. But I'm pretty sure they would have said Mickey Mouse if this is just Steamboat Willie. And if I know anything about any of the copyright laws and stuff like that, it's like, I do. It's very precise. Like you need to, that's why it's like, okay, his shoe faced left. So his shoe needs to face left. Like it's stupid stuff like that.
Now, a few other things, another, like one of those stupid things, for instance, a good example of that is Winnie the Pooh, which the first Winnie the Pooh book became public domain last year, which is why we got that terrible horror movie that came out, Blood and Honey or something.
But it was literally just the character Winnie the Pooh. Like Christopher Robin wasn't part of it.
No, it was the first set of stories. The thing that wasn't introduced until the next book was Tigger.
Okay.
Tigger now is also included, so they can now make a sequel with a murderous Tigger.
Right, which I'm sure they probably will. Why not?
We're talking about the original Peter Pan novel, which honestly I'm surprised that's because it seems like every company has made a Peter Pan movie. Like every year there's a new shitty Peter Pan movie that I don't want to see.
Well, because like technically, right, doesn't Disney doesn't own Peter Pan. It's like Disney doesn't own, I think it was a Snow White. Like there's a few major things where it's like they just made a copy tales of something. Yeah. Beauty and the Beast, for example, you know, stuff
Little
like
Mermaid. A lot of those are public. We're already public domain, I believe. There's a Charlie Chaplin movie, The Circus, and a Buster Keaton movie, The Cameraman. There was, what was the other? Oh yeah, the not the movie, but the Broadway script for the original Marx Brothers play Animal Crackers.
Right. Which is technically different from the movie.
I don't know how different it is, but I do know it includes the line, one morning I shot an elephant in my pajamas. So,
oh, right. So
you're free to use that.
Now, the weird thing about this is we are now entering the 20s, the 2020s, we are in the 2020s.
The roaring.
But if you think about when all media from back in the day started to come out, it was literally 100 years ago, TVs, movies, talking pictures. Like we're going to start seeing more and more public domain things every year because it's been 100 years and that's usually the cutoff. B, they were really shoddy with paperwork back in the day. So it's like, there's going to be certain things like, what is it? The first zombie movie, not the first, but
Night of the Living Dead. Yeah.
That's a public domain movie because somebody forgot to put the little R at the end of it or the trade, like something stupid like that, So we are going to start seeing a lot every year because, if you take a look at literally 100 years ago is when all of the mainstream media started to become public, just started to become popular, become a thing.
That's sort of another reason why it's not until recently people have really cared to talk about this because, in the early, like other than novels, there are famous novels, but movies, I mean, we still don't have TV yet. We're not at TV in 100 years ago.
Right.
There's like radio and silent films.
Right. Basically things that Edison made are now public domain.
But you have stuff like Winnie the Pooh, where even though it started as a written work, or Peter Pan, it's been popularized enough as a movie or whatever that people make that association.
So I'm sure we're going to get like Little House on the Prairie soon because those were originally books.
Was that when did those come out? Or those might have been later. They might have been place in the 1800s, but I don't know
the TV show was like, let's say the 70s, I think. So I'm thinking the books were well before that.
They were. I don't know. We don't know. For some reason I was thinking it might have been 80s or even 90s. I thought maybe it was Little House on the Prairie.
The show came out in 1974.
Oh, wow.
And then the books.
We're going to get to the bottom of this, folks. Don't worry. You can stop yelling at your car. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Why are people yelling at their car?
Because they're pissed. They're like, Bumblebee, you mother effer.
There's a bunch of dates in here,
Fucker.
but one of them is 1932.
Okay, so we got a little ways to go,
yeah.
but that is pretty early. But
I'm just doing a quick glance. So yeah,
I wasn't sure if those were later, but yeah, okay, cool.
But if you think about a lot of things that are in public domain, like most of Shakespeare is public domain.
Isn't all of it?
I'm sure at this point, yeah, all of it. A lot of famous Broadway plays are probably public domain at this point. Most of Charles Dickens probably is, because if you've seen for years, because
I think all of it.
But you don't think about that kind of stuff as public domain, where it's like, oh yeah, that's been public domain forever, but now it's starting to be stuff that's like in our lifetimes or in our family's lifetimes. It's, stuff that came out was like when your grandmother was alive. She's like, oh, I remember, stuff like that.
Yeah. And then one day we'll be real old and we'll be sitting around and going, oh, would you look at that? I can finally make my adaptation of Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. It's in the public domain.
Hey, I'm just waiting for SpongeBob SquarePants. What was that, 1999 that came out? So I'll be dead. That's it.
I think, yeah. In 20 years, we'll all be dead. So none of this will really be important. But it's kind of, we already have a Steamboat Willie horror video game that has been announced, and there's a trailer for it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So there are actually things in the makings that are in. That's funny.
What I genuinely think would be fun is a board game, like a Steamboat Willie card game or something like that. Could be cute. Or
now, do you see Disney
a video game
just kind of like, because they still, they don't own it anymore because public domain, but they can beat people to this. They could be like, sure. People are going to be making Steamboat Willie things. Why don't we do a 100th anniversary of Steamboat Willie video game? Or the kind of jump the ticket,
if they were going to beat people to it, it would have been last year. It would have already happened.
Do you think they care that they're losing or lost?
Clearly they don't. If they did, they'd keep fighting it. They did. I believe they did put out a new Steamboat Willie short last year or something on Disney Plus. But yeah, I think they've just decided, in my opinion, wisely. Why are we spending all this effort, energy, and legal energy on this thing that ultimately it's really not going to change? If somebody makes a Mickey Mouse whatever, it's not gonna. They're not gonna lose money. They have so much. I know that they're only going to also more and more.
But if you think about their main demographic, which are children, some kids now who are going to spend money on other Disney properties are going to be like, oh, I want the Steamboat Willie stuffed animal. They don't want that shit.
Yeah, no one really remembers what that is or what it signifies or cares.
And even Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse is a big thing with the parks and stuff, but is there Mickey Mouse content still being pumped out?
They
House of Mouse or something like that.
In the last few years, they've had the House of Mouses for kids. Then they have also been doing the new Mickey shorts. If you've seen those, where the animation style is a little more modern, which are actually pretty fun.
Okay.
And there was a video game that came out, so that they're kind of trying to get him, but he's not really the focus.
He's just kind of there. So it's like Bugs Bunny. Warner Brothers technically they own Bugs Bunny. It's like, oh, we'll pump out a movie every 10 years to say, we have Bugs Bunny. But yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what this means. I don't know when Mickey became the more
Mickey
the Mickey
Mouse
we know now. But that was sort of a gradual change, but that might be not for at least another decade, probably. I don't know when he first had a voice. No, I think Walt Disney did the voice. Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
The original Mickey Mouse character, now in public domain, which doesn't make sense. As of January 1st, the copyright for Mickey Mouse was 1928.
Wait, so is that when Steamboat Willie came out?
Oh, so that's not Mickey. I guess that is Mickey Mouse, because Steamboat Willie was created back in 1928.
Okay. So I think you're allowed to say Mickey Mouse as long as he's dressed like a sailor on a boat. And he's in black and white.
So I bet you any money like Carnival Cruise Line and stuff like that, they're going to take advantage of that shit left and right.
It'll be interesting to see what people try to get away with and what Disney decides they need to put a stop to.
Right. Because I'm sure there's going to be some things like I'm surprised that Winnie the Pooh, I never saw it, but it was supposed to be like a dark horror movie kind of, right?
Yes.
I'm surprised they didn't try to stop that, but they're like, oh, who's going to see this?
Yeah, well, that too. But I mean, again, it was public domain. They had no legal standing, unless you mean just trying to push the date again of the public domain.
But also it's too, like what I was saying before, it's so far in the opposite direction of Disney that like their demographic isn't going to know what that is.
Yeah, we'll see. Somebody could make an animated Winnie the Pooh, but there are certain things that like Disney, like the way that Winnie the Pooh talks, like the sound of his voice was Disney's. Like they still own
the red shirt. I think it's Disney
the red shirt.
That.
I think I'm trying to think because I think it depends. And some of the illustrations, maybe does he have a shirt on? But yeah, there's stuff like that.
Like stupid things, right?
So I don't know. It's a weird thing, man. Copyright law. I don't know what to tell you. I think Star Wars is probably going to stay not in the public domain for a bit longer, though.
Or at least their costumes will definitely.
The costumes, yeah, you won't be able to recreate the iconic hairstyles of, say, Obi-Wan Kenobi or Satine Krasinski.
Right.
Which leads us to today's court case. Speaking of legal issues, we're moving on to other legal issues now, our own.
Right.
As we're judges. As you've watched the intro, that's sort of the idea of the show.
I've never seen the intro.
Today's case comes to us from the intranet. You can find a link in our episode description. Our defendant today is Anna. Anna and her boyfriend James are big Star Wars fans. And so, when they're invited to a New Year's Eve costume party, normal thing, we all do that, they decide to attend dressed as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Satine from the Star Wars Clone Wars cartoon. The other partygoers, when they get there, they're digging the stooms. Until one guest comments on it being worth it that James convinced Anna to wear it. James laughs and says, yeah, it was a struggle, but it paid off. This is the part that confuses Anna because it wasn't a struggle. She was excited to dress up in character, and she tries to address this fact, but James seems embarrassed by this. Then he seems upset that she embarrassed him, and she's confused that he seems to have indicated to his friends that it was his idea, and he had to spend multiple days talking her into the costume scenario. Now Anna is wondering if she shouldn't have just gone along with the whole thing instead of potentially causing a party foul. As dual judges here on Geeks on Trial, it's now our job to determine whether Anna should have done or done not.
Now I want a donut.
Oh, they should have that at Galaxy's Edge, the do or do not.
We're going to bleep this so we can sell it to them. That's a good idea.
Man, that is good. That is good stuff. That is really good.
That is good eats there.
So Satine, we all know beloved character Satine.
I totally didn't need to Google that a few times before starting today's show.
Whenever
this afternoon.
We're in two different time zones, right, but we are both in Belgium.
Right. Upstairs, Belgium, downstairs, Belgium.
Right. And that's where the dividing line of the what do they call that? The green
time zone
line. The green, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, the green
line.
So
I actually have watched enough of the Star Wars, the Clone Wars cartoon to have seen episodes with Satine, who is a queen or a senator or a congressperson of some planet or other.
The mayor.
And she has sort of a romantic relationship with Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is why it's a couple's costume. I forgot that who it was. I had to look it up, and then I went, yes, I do know who that is. I haven't watched all of the Clone Wars. I sort of stopped because I didn't really think it was that good. But people say it's good.
Cartoon Network show?
Yeah, it was Cartoon Network.
And I'm assuming now it's on like Disney Plus, or does Cartoon Network still own the rights to it?
It's on Disney Plus.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a whole thing where I watched it in this weird order because the episodes aren't chronological in production order, and there's a whole list of like, you should watch it like this.
Yeah.
And so it was always confusing.
There was an animated Clone Wars movie first, right?
So there was a Clone Wars cartoon made by Genndy Tartakovsky, who made Samurai Jack.
Okay.
Which was 2D. And then they made the Clone Wars 3D animated show, which was different. And there was technically it was a movie kicked off, but it was more like the pilot for the show. Really, it was like kind of like the first 3 episodes strung together.
Was it not in theaters?
It was.
It was okay.
I don't think anyone cared.
So I think I saw that in theaters, and then I guess watched the show after it, and then just kind of trailed off and went, okay, that was a thing I watched. Couldn't tell you anything about it.
As a huge Star Wars fan, I watched I watched into a season or 2 of Clone Wars, and I know it gets better, and some parts were good, but I just didn't hook me.
Right.
Now,
have you ever been to a masquerade ball?
Costume party?
Like, let's say, okay, any kind of costume party that's not Halloween. A non-Halloween costume party. Have you ever been to a non-Halloween costume party?
Do you want to rephrase it another time? Or
nope.
Okay. Does Purim count?
I'm sorry, what?
Does Purim count?
I thought you said porn, and I'm like, yes. I guess that's a Purim counts.
Purim is a Jewish holiday in which you dress up. They pretty much decided this will be Jewish Halloween for some reason.
So I guess yes. I guess working at the summer camp we used to work at, we've had
costume days. Yeah, costume days. But other than that, I've never been to a
traditional masquerade party.
Yeah, and that's not really something.
Neither have I, and I don't think that's I didn't. When I was reading this case, I didn't really think it was a thing that was still done. That's why I'm like, oh, it's New Year's Eve costume party. That's interesting. But I guess in history, that's roughly when you would do them. It'd be the masked balls and stuff would be during the holiday season or during, New Year's Eve parties. But yeah, it's one of those things that's it's probably public domain at this point. You don't.
It's during the winter solstice. You go in there and you have the pointy mask and there's an orgy.
Right.
Bill Clinton's there.
Mm-hmm. Is there a buffet at that orgy? I love a good orgy buffet.
Who doesn't?
So I don't know. Like I said, never been to. I've been to New Year's Eve parties.
Never been to an orgy.
Never been to an orgy. Never been to a masked ball.
Doesn't it seem? I don't know. A costume party on New Year's Eve. Maybe it's fun. It also seems kind of like we just had Christmas. Everybody's tired. Can we just finish this year without making me think about the costumes?
New Year's Eve parties for us is usually when we see, it's friends Christmas. It's a Friendsgiving. It's when we do our collective.
Who has New Year's with their family? That's not a thing, is it? It's not really.
Well, we were talking about this too the other night. We're like, have you ever gone out for New Year's Eve? And it's no, usually it's it's a friends holiday. I know
for
people
us,
do go out to
well, they go out with friends, I assume. Yeah.
Or I guess, or they try to find other couples, but, go to a bar, go to a restaurant, go do a couples thing. But it's always been a friend thing for us.
Yeah. Well, I think that's normal.
Right.
I think that's just how it is. I mean, we've never done we've never gone out to a bar or something. No.
And I guess when we were kids, we would do stuff at home with our parents on New Year's Eve.
Sure.
But that was have snacks and watch Dick Clark on TV.
My family never hosted a New Year's. It was always just me and family and the TV on.
Or a babysitter because our parents were going to a friend's party.
Oh, I don't even think
that would be a thing like that.
My parents ever did that.
Yeah.
They weren't popular enough to be invited to parties. That costume just sounds I don't know when you do a costume party, but you know what? Just Halloween. That's fine.
Right.
We don't need more than one.
Purim, you can do Purim. That's fine. So okay, let's bring it down to Halloween. How much thought do you put into
There's a bit of dust in the air, so I just.
How much thought do you put into your Halloween costumes? Are you a big costume person?
Now, none. I'm too lazy. I don't. It's always last minute, and I'm like, I guess I didn't do one. Forget it.
Right. For a while, I used to, but for high school and college, I was part. High school I was part of the TV studio and the theater. So it's okay, we had full access to costumes and stuff. Then in college, I was a film student. So I was okay, cool. We have, and then I also worked for Party City, which is a regional.
So you stole props and things.
Oh, absolutely. When I worked for Party City, it was you kind of had to dress every day for work. So it's just we had costumes anyway. So during Halloween season, we had to pick a different costume every day and wear it at our job.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
That sounds stupid.
We were walking advertisements, so we had to dress every...
I feel like there's that's opening a lot of costumes they could be selling.
Okay, you want a little dirty?
Oh, they're from
fact?
like years past or something.
Every costume in that store gets tried on like clothing in a store. So every costume is tried on. So all those costumes
sealed up though.
No.
But some of them come in like a bag with stuff
with like 2 buttons on them. You open that and you put on a costume. You know how many people buy costumes and return them the day after Halloween?
They shouldn't be able to do that. Well, my other thing was just I feel like it'd be hard to. You still have a name tag. I wouldn't know who's. I guess no one else has come into Party City already in costume.
It's the assholes who are forced to wear costumes that they need to sell this year. And there would be a list too. It's like, okay, we need to push these costumes. So can you wear these costumes? I'm like, you don't pay me.
Did you ever do a couple's costume before?
Not really. I think maybe Danny and I have worn like matching Star Trek uniforms. So I guess that's a couple's costume, but it's like,
that counts.
But that's also like his regular everyday clothing.
I guess I have to say for the podcast that I technically did do Star Wars.
Did you?
I've done Han and Leia.
So. Okay, but I feel
had
like
hair still.
That feels. Oh, you could buy a wig. You have perfect head for a wig.
Han.
It's true, but that was like that's a typical couple costume.
It's not the deep cut of Obi-Wan and Satine.
Right.
But that's fun. I mean, there's something fun about that. I think that's a fun thing to do if you are a Koopla.
Now, I would never do a cosplay. Would you have you cosplayed?
Well, the cosplay, what does that mean? Technically, Han Solo, any costume is a cosplay if you want to break it down. Cosplay is just about when you wear it. It's like at a convention instead of on Halloween. But
I don't think you've ever dressed up for a convention, have you?
And cosplay is, I think maybe it's usually cosplay is more about something the person made themselves. But I don't think it necessarily has to be.
No, because you could like technically go to Party City and grab a costume and wear it to a convention.
And you'd still say you're cosplaying. And no, I've never dressed up for a convention or anything like that. It's because I feel like I can't. What am I going to do that's good enough? Everyone else has great stuff.
Well, that's the thing too. Like people, like most of the time, this is like their job. It's like they're making this costume, and like going out and taking photos and stuff. Or it's like they're that much into whatever property they're dressing up as. This is like their life.
So we're hitting all these angles, but I don't want to not save time for some of the meat of this actual case, because I do think there's some interesting discussion to be had here. Where, to recap, they came up with this costume together. James apparently told his friends that he had to convince his girlfriend to dress up in this costume, whereas he didn't.
Right, and this was potentially 50-50, equal ideas. They're both, people who have access to costumes, wear costumes, enjoy the wars of stars, or maybe Trek. You don't know.
Or maybe Afghanistan, wherever.
Oh,
they're into all
wars.
of them.
Yeah, they do. They do. What is that called when you go and like dress up in like for like the civil reenactments? They do reenactments. So it is kind of
Afghanistan reenactments. Anyone doing that yet? Anyone jumping on that one?
That'll be public domain soon. So it is kind of it's kind of douchey to use a technical to do a technical term. It's kind of douchey that he was like kind of machoing up and being like, oh yeah, to try to get her to come out in this costume. Like, that's the vibe I'm getting from him.
Well, that's the question. Yeah. Like I don't, that's the vibe you're getting. Is that what was his headspace here? And we don't actually have, technically with this case, we don't have confirmation. We don't know if she confronted him about it.
Right.
He didn't at all technically deny that he did this or really fully confirm it. We don't know exactly what he may have said to people, but it seems like he was going along with it and saying, yeah, I had to convince her. He did say that.
Right. If like literally him saying, oh yeah, I had to convince her and stuff. All he had to do was like Be like, oh yeah, we decided, and that's it. Just we decided. So
what do you think that this was? I'm trying to understand the rationale of like what the advantage of this is for him, because I usually, if you're a geekier person, and especially like a typical straight fella,
right,
and you bag a lady
who's also a nerd,
then usually that's like, isn't that a badge of honor to say for your buddies, like, oh yeah, she's totally into Doom. I don't know. That's why that's the first thing I thought of.
But, love that spice.
But I said Doom with an M, not Doom.
Oh, I thought you said Dune. I'm sorry.
Dune maybe would be better. That's a better one.
Well, you don't know the spice of Doom? The Doom spice?
Love that spice from Arrakis. Okay. So, like, what? Like, you're phrasing it as it's like a macho thing. Is that
like? It feels like
answer?
Like, but because that was the first vibe I got from him. That
being
was
a nerd isn't macho, though. You know,
among other nerds. You know, oh, this was my idea. Like, I've seen that happen where it's like, oh, this is my idea. I did this. Like, he's trying to like not one up her, but like not give her the credit that should be due. Or just be like, or don't be like, oh yeah, I had to, because like he's having to convince her is in his brain to get this costume. That's kind of shitty.
It's
he's
weird.
Saying, like, oh yeah, I had to convince her to wear it. But also at the other, like, if people know, well, but if people like, if they've been a good couple for a while and people know her, they'll be like, did you really? Like, did you? Because
maybe it's a party where not everybody knows them, I guess.
Right. So maybe he's like trying to start a new.
But what is he embarrassed? Like, does he not want people to know she's a Star Wars fan? But I still don't. The dots are not connecting in my head of this being like a macho thing. Like, I genuinely am struggling to understand why he would lie about it.
On either end, like, you know, if he was trying to be more macho and to be like the man of the relationship, but like you're both dressed in costume.
Right. Like, if he doesn't want to be like, if he doesn't want people to think his girlfriend is nerdy for whatever reason, then he would have just vetoed the costume altogether.
Or just not gone to the party, which I'm assuming if they dressed in like a Star Wars thing, there's other nerd people there.
You'd think.
Like, it's probably, you know.
And again, it's like a deep cut one. So it's not even like.
Right. But like hers is more deep cut.
Yes, right.
So it's not like he had to convince, like, that just seems like she had to convince him, here, just put on this Obi-Wan costume. You know who Obi-Wan is. Here you go. You know, like, if you were to go in that kind of like, if you had to convince somebody, her costume, wouldn't have been amazing, probably, in my, you know, thing. Or it would have been like, oh yeah, I'm a stormtrooper. Well, you know, something basic.
I want to know who's at this party, by the way, that like everybody knows this character and isn't like Obi-Wan and Padme.
Right. Or are you wearing a costume? Is this a nice hat?
It's just you just came from the shower. It's your bathrobe.
Right.
I just don't know that I am convinced by like and maybe you're just using this as kind of a stand-in word, but the macho thing of like, I'm trying to.
Well, maybe not macho.
How does this make him look good to his friends? I just don't understand how it helps his image.
Well, it doesn't, and that's why it's like he kind of looks like an asshole.
I'm trying to figure out like what his angle is, and what does he want out of this?
Right, why he just didn't go. Oh,
we came up with
this together because because in her eyes, it's making him look like an asshole that she doesn't want to be with. You know, like, oh, why is he trying to not one up people, not be but like something like try to be like. Like, that's why with macho came into my head, because it's like, oh, I came up with this. I took it's a credit grabber. Basically, he wants to be a credit grabber.
There must be something in the history of maybe there's some other lie that at some point, for some reason, he said to a friend, and for some reason that this had to add on to it for that one to make sense.
Like, oh yeah, you know, she wasn't really into watching the Star Wars movie, but you know, I talked her into watching all the movies, and you know, I made her a Star Wars fan.
what is that? I'm not going to try to tell a story someone else told that I can't remember. So never mind. Forget I said anything.
That story was great.
But yeah, maybe it's a thing of someone was telling a story about, when I got my girlfriend to watch Star Wars for the first time, and they were like, didn't you do that too? And he was just like, out of politeness, like, yeah. And now it just like has snowballed into like, I have to keep this lie going because it's too embarrassing to tell them at this point.
Where they're going to fall, they're going to be like, oh, this lie is not true because she's dressed as such an obscure character. She clearly.
Well, you could just assume that he just told her what to wear. I mean, that's not. It's just not like they both came up with the idea.
But you're right, though. There is no winning angle that like
I can't figure out. That's why even like framing it as him being a dick, it's like I don't even usually when someone's a dick, they get something out of it. Right. I don't know what makes it like, oh, you are really persuasive. I don't think you were, but wow, you really can persuade.
You can tell your woman what to do. Like,
I guess if that's maybe what the only thing.
Like the only, and that's like me thinking old school. Yeah. Like it's like, oh, I told the little woman to wear the costume and she obeyed. But like,
when has a Star Wars fan ever been toxic to women?
Right, never. Oh.
Why? Notice they weren't dressed as Finn and Rose Tico, which I guess they're black and Asian, so these people are probably white.
That's all you got to assume. I mean, you're right,
but and there's the whole stigma, of course, of girls in nerdy spaces are frequently don't feel welcome because of men,
people like this,
and the concept of like a fake gamer girl or fake nerd, but again, that's why I'm like, it's the opposite. You usually you want people to think your girlfriend is a real. If anything, you'd lie and be like, yeah, it was her idea.
Right? She made me wear this costume, and I'm happy about it. Like
she's such a big fan.
I mean, to be fair, she was passing around her bath water to people. Maybe he was a little embarrassed.
Yeah, her back to tank water. That's another reference.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever watch the Boba Fett show?
Who's Boba
Fett? Did you ever watch Star Wars?
What is like when two stars fight?
Did you ever watch American Graffiti?
Yes.
Okay, well, that guy made another movie.
Right.
And there's cars in that one. There's cars in this one too, but they go higher.
Okay.
And faster. And they have guns.
Okay.
And that's Boba Fett. And that's now you know.
Okay.
So Anna it's understandable that she is confused by this because I'm confused by this. Right. And it is absolutely strange. I'm maybe just presumably, I guess I'm giving James a little more benefit of the doubt that maybe this isn't malicious, and it's because I just can't think of the angle that makes
but
it.
But there has to be something like not.
It's also
like you said,
so
macho's
like
a stupid thing, but like there has to be some kind of like boasting or like, oh yeah, she's my late, like that kind of like.
I guess
like you wouldn't just be like, oh, I take all the credit for this if there was no reason behind it. Like there has to be something.
But you're also framing it as taking the credit as if it's like an achievement. But it's like, but the idea to wear a costume doesn't require any effort or work.
But the way like, he said it, that he had to like kind of coax her into it.
I guess.
It's not just like, oh, I decided. There was like, oh yeah, she, what was the exact wording that we used?
Conviction?
No, like in the actual
convincing?
Was it convinced? Like he had to convince her to wear it in the case file. Like how did they say it? Like what was the quote that she had to
convinced, I guess. Yeah.
So like using something like convinced kind of seems like
get her to wear that is the quote.
Right.
Used.
So get her to wear that, being like, oh, she didn't want to wear this at all. Like that's the chunk that I'm taking out of it. If he was just like, oh yeah, I decided we're going to wear this. Like that was even worse. But like I had to convince her, meaning like she was dragging her feet.
Well, the much weirder part perhaps is after that he doesn't explain it.
Right. He doesn't do his mansplaining.
She asks him like, oh, so you know what? Points for him. She asks him, what is that about? And he's like brushes her off and doesn't answer. So clearly there's
right.
I think like maybe I guess I'm just picturing it. And again, not that this even lets him off the hook, but I guess I'm imagining maybe it was just a joke that he told and like someone just took it seriously. And now he just like doesn't want to correct them because sometimes it's embarrassing to tell someone they're wrong when it's something that in this case is so, to me, insignificant that it's like probably never going to matter again. Now, if it's something that's like happens all the time and he like constantly says, oh yeah, she still doesn't like Star Wars. And you're like, at every party they go to.
Right. She brings her lightsaber everywhere she goes. And she's like,
and we have no window into what is this relationship like outside of this one interaction. So I don't know. Right. I am giving the benefit of the doubt that like this guy's not a terrible boyfriend generally speaking. But like
put yourself in her shoes. She probably put in equal amounts of work.
Keep giving me my fetish. I love it. Yeah.
She probably put in equal amount or maybe more work into getting these costumes together. And you did this, you did your equal footing. You didn't just, show up and here's your costume, you put it on. And then you hear your boyfriend talking to the bros being like, the boys being like, hey, I had to convince her to wear this costume. Yeah. You would kind of be like you'd be a little upset. I would.
I don't think I would be upset. I would just be confused. I would just be like, I don't like, I like, just like I am now.
But then if you brought it up,
I don't understand.
But then later you bring it up and then he brushes it off. That's kind of like being like, okay, maybe you are being, maybe not a douchebag, but it's a douchey way to go around it.
Yes.
This guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, again, yeah. The fallout of this is then the like, why did you do that? That's weird.
Right. And then he like didn't like open conversation it being like, oh, because I'm sure if he were to explain it like, oh yeah, I told Johnny that, you weren't into Star Wars and you actually are. And then she would have been like, okay, that's stupid, but fine. Like then it wouldn't be a post on the internet.
Right. Well, everything needs to be a post on the internet.
Sure.
How about I give a verdict?
Let's do verdicts. Cause I think we might, I see us split in different ways here.
We don't.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing.
Here's
HTT.
HTT.
As I like to say. I think where our difference of opinion lies is that I am maybe being charitable and because I think this whole scenario to me feels so low stakes that I just am having trouble picturing how this is some like, evil mastermind or abuser. Right. I know you're not necessarily saying that, but
no. Well, can you, before you say all this, just say as a white straight man, and it'll frame it up easier.
No, but I will use that quote from you out of context.
Okay.
Thank you for that clip.
You're welcome.
I'm just imagining that there's some, like, this is just a dumb, weird miscommunication thing that he's embarrassed about that. So I think where we differ is that I don't necessarily, I'm not like mad at the boyfriend. If I knew more, I might be.
Right.
I just want to understand him, and I don't. But where I think we agree, certainly, is that Anna did not do anything wrong. She is certain, whether or not there's guilt on the other party's behalf, she's well in her right to say what the hell is going on. This is and question it out loud. And it's not like if her boyfriend didn't want her to ask a question about this or something, he could have brought that up to her in advance. Like how is she supposed to know? It's ridiculous to feel guilty for embarrassing him when you have no idea that there's anything to even be embarrassed about. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we're judging her for whether or not she should have just laughed along with the joke, which maybe you can make an argument of of like, just whatever it is, you can talk about it later as a couple, but you're in public. But again, it's such a weird, small thing. It's not like they go, oh, how's your mom doing? And she's like, I thought his mom's been dead for 6 years. That would be a little different. This is just such a silly thing. But anyway, regardless, Anna's not guilty.
Yeah, so it is a weird situation because, like, I'm a person who likes to give credit to people, and also as somebody who does things creatively and stuff like that, I like to get credit when credit is due. So, like, so I wouldn't like when it's like, oh, she potentially. I'm assuming these costumes weren't store bought because you probably can't buy whatever costume she was at a store.
Probably not. Maybe parts of it, but you probably have to cobble things together.
So, as a couple, they had to create this. So by saying, like, in my brain, him saying that he had to, like, convince her to do said costume is kind of like, oh, I made said costume and it was like, here, you need to wear this or whatever. So it's like, by not, he's not giving her half of the credit of being a part of it. Even fan or not, like, I'm not a massive fan of Star Trek, but, I get into it with my partner and, if he's like, oh, wear a costume, I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go pick out my Star Trek uniform and figure out what, job title pin I want to wear. But then if he would be like, oh yeah, I bought that for him, I'd be like, dude, that's fucked up.
I had to spend a month to convince him to wear that.
Right. Like something like that, where it's like, it's kind of shitty as a relationship standpoint. I don't think there was anything malicious in this. I don't think there was anything like he was purposely trying to do it. But if there was like a inside joke or like, oh, he told them something about her, to be in the car ride before you get there, be like, hey, I told so-and-so that maybe, I had to convince you to do X, Y, and Z the first time. She probably would have been like, okay, that's fine. Or, something along the lines. So, yeah. So I don't think, what is her name?
Anna.
I don't think Anna's guilty of anything, right? Is that that's what you said, right? Yeah, that's she's not guilty of any of the crimes that she did or didn't do. But, she's, it's just shitty that she kind of had to like overhear that. And then when she confronted her partner, he kind of like brushed it off and like, oh, you're just overthinking it, which is like, telling a partner to, why don't you just calm down? That's always a fun thing if you want to start a fight with somebody. So not guilty.
Yeah. I think your thoughts are pretty fair, pretty valid. It's definitely,
which is what makes this a good 50-50 relationship.
Forget it. What's his name? Is his name Curtis Jackson?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Hold on, let me look it up.
Okay. So yeah,
Curtis Jackson, two Curtis Jacksons is a 50-50 relationship or a 50-50 relationship.
Oh, that was not worth the time.
It was worth it. The people loved it.
You know what? It's a 50-50 relationship. It was great. Good job. That was all on you. You did that.
Well, you had to convince me. We are, need to sentence. Yes. I guess it's the boyfriend. I guess it has to be him.
Yeah.
He's guilty. Yeah. Whether or not I think he's guilty, he's got to be punished.
But because it's like, he's not, like, I guess he's not guilty, but he's not guilty.
Yeah, he's on the chopping block. Again, I want to know what I really wish I knew what his answer was, but it's
borderline problematic. It's like,
you shouldn't do this.
Right.
You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't. It's weird to do this.
And because of that, all the costumes that they wear as the next couple's costumes, he has to hand sew. No sewing machines. He has to make them from scratch.
I think maybe
they better be good.
They have to be. I don't know. I don't know. Well, some property he doesn't like. Maybe he's got to dress as. This is probably a guy who doesn't like Last Jedi. I think they have to be Finn and Rose.
There you go.
I think they have to be Jar Jar and Boss Nass.
There you go. They both Jar Jar and Jar Jar. Dueling Jar Jars.
Two Jar Jars. Maybe 2 50 cents, and maybe they have to wear blackface.
Have to be $1.
Well, he
has to be George
classier.
Lucas. He has to dress up as George Lucas. Current day George Lucas.
Yeah, nobody.
What was the movie before Star Wars that he made? The other
THX 1138.
Okay, that was I was trying to figure that out, and I just couldn't figure out that because it rolls off the tongue.
They got to be C-3PO and R2-D2, and he has to crawl inside the
into a garbage can
for the whole night,
for the entire night. And
I think all those are fair.
They can never go to another costume party because why? Don't.
No, nobody wants to invite you. Hey, if you're watching or listening to this at home, we are on YouTube and in podcast format, whatever you like. It's true. Maybe you want to let us know your verdicts on this one. What do you think? Can you explain what the hell was going on in this case? Or do you have an opinion? Or have you ever experienced a costume mishap like this one? Let us know. Email us, geeksontrial@gmail.com. Same place you can go, real convenient. You can do it in the same email if you want. Give us your own geeky case. Perhaps a cosplay dispute, something related to chess, checkers, or other games, or movies, or stamp collecting. Or
coin collecting,
cereal eating. Let us know about all that. geeksontrial@gmail.com.
And hey, we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/geeksontrial. And we have a brand new show over there exclusive to Patreon. It's called Geeks on Trial Sidebar. It's where myself and Jonathan take off the robes and have discussions. Random questions are answered.
There's clothes underneath. Don't worry.
Well, if you pay $20, that's a different camera. We shoot neck down for one. And anyway, so you can get that show. It comes out twice a month, bi-monthly, or every other week. And that's over at patreon.com/geeksontrial.
Got all three ways to say it in there.
And the first episode is up right now if you want to go get that. And plus you get the early access to all of our episodes as well. And it's even earlier than the early it was before. So you can check it out. We're at patreon.com/geeksontrial. Hey, Jonathan, where can people find you?
All right. Check me out. All my stuff's on my website, jonathanestis.com. And it won't be out when this episode is out, but I'm going to hope it's out in the next day or two after. So I will just direct people to my YouTube channel and my newsletter, which are both linked on my website, jonathanestis.com, because the year has ended. We're in a new one, but I'm going to be doing my 2 videos for my top 10 movies of 2023 and my top 10 TV shows of 2023, which is something I like to do every year. Only last year did I start doing it in video form, but I had a lot of fun. And I've been cramming movies end of the year to make sure I can fill out my list properly. So I'm really excited to put that out.
Now I have an idea for you because we were talking about top 10 video games and board games and stuff like that. What if you did a third video that was top 10 just assorted media? Because you don't really have, because you were saying you didn't play a lot of the video games this year, or you played a few of them. Same with board games and stuff like that. So if you did an assorted thing,
perhaps,
because you could throw podcasts in there, things like that as well.
Just like favorite things of the year.
Right.
Miscellaneous. Potpourri.
You're Oprah.
Potpourri.
Potpourri.
Yeah, I would love to do top 10 video games, and you would think I love video games and I play a lot of video games. It seems like I should be able to do that list, but I don't always I feel like I'm missing a lot of big ones, or I don't.
Well, and also
I don't know.
Movies and TV shows are kind of more so movies are easier.
They're because, much easier. Yeah.
Even the longest movie this year was 3.5 hours. That's one 3.5 hour chunk out of your life, where a video game can be anywhere between 20 minutes for a small game to 18 days,
Right. Yeah, it's tough. And TV shows are nice now because it's 7 half-hour episodes.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Or 12 at the max. And with video games too, it's harder because you have the VR, you have PS5, Switch, there's a lot more. I just hit my microphone. There's a lot more things to do. Board games are probably easier too, but board games are also hard to play.
Yeah, depends.
Yeah.
How about your stuff?
Oh, you can find me over at ivanhan.com. Also Ivan Han or Ivan Arhan on the Twitter and other social medias. And ivanhan.com is where you can get all of my Snack Guy stuff and other projects that are probably releasing in the next couple of weeks. So check that out. I have a few new things hitting the YouTube.
Got to start the year off right. It's always fun to have some new stuff going on in the new year.
Got to stop procrastinating.
You gotta. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Hope your year's off to a good start. Thanks for joining us. And hey, spend some of that holiday money. Kick into our Patreon. You're not going to regret it.
$5.
Just one little plug there at the end. My name is Jonathan Estes.
My name's Ivan Hahn, and this has been Geeks on Trial. Patreon.com/Geeks on Trial. Oh, he left. Bye.